Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 13, The Behavior of a Perfect Person, text number 37. Aniha paritushtatma yadrichopana natad aham. Do we have it there? Well, I guess everyone's reading the Sanskrit. Good practice. You know, Sanskrit, you also can read Hindi also. Nachechtaye bhavahani mahahir eva satvavan aniha paritushtatma yadrich chopanatad aham. Nachechchaya bhavahani mahahir eva satvavan avarid bhushtatma Isha Charipatmaham Chechaya Bhavani Mahahir Eva Satvavan Iha Tatatushtatma Yarichopanatadaham Chechaya Bhavani Mahahir Eva Satvavan Iha Taritushtatma Iricha Janapadaham Yachechaya Bhavani Mahahir Eva Satvavan. Mataji. Tatma Yadrichopanatadaham Anacheshaye Bhavani Ahahir Eva Satvavan Aniha, with no desire to possess more. Paritushta, very satisfied. Atma, self. Idrichaya, in its own way, without endeavor. Upanatat, by things brought in by possession. Aham, I. Na, not. Chet, if so. Shaye, I lie down. Bahu, many. Ahani, days. Ahi, a python. Eva, like. Satvavan, enduring. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. I do not endeavor to get anything, but I'm satisfied with whatever is achieved in its own way. If I do not get anything, I am patient and unagitated like a python and lie down in this way for many days. Purport. One should learn detachment from the bumblebees, for they collect drops of honey here and there and keep it in their honeycomb. But then someone comes and by force takes all the honey away, leaving the bumblebees with nothing. Therefore, one should learn from the bumblebee not to keep more money than one needs. Similarly, one should learn from the python to stay in one place for many, many days without food and then eat only if something comes in its own way. Thus, the learned Brahmana gave instructions gained from two creatures, namely the bumblebee and the python. Aniha paritushtatma idrichto panatad aham niched chaya pani hani mahir ivas satvavan. I do not endeavor to get anything, but I am satisfied with whatever is achieved in its own way. If I do not get anything, I am patient and agitated like a python and lie down in this way for many, many days. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shnivadi Paskatya Desatarni. Two examples are given here. One is the python, and the other is the bumblebee. The bumblebee, at times, collects flower pollen and then goes to their hive and they produce honey there. But sometimes someone comes along or something comes along and takes all the honey away from the honeycomb. And therefore, sometimes the bees are left with nothing. Generally speaking, those who are beekeepers collecting for honey, they don't take all the honey out of the honeycomb and let the bees starve to death, because next year they won't get any honey. They're a little bit more strategic than that. They leave enough honey so that the bees can live comfortably, get intoxicated during the year, and then produce more honey the next year. But if a bear comes along, perhaps, the bear may not be so considerate and may take all the honey. Similarly, the python has no choice but to lie in one place and hope something comes along so he can eat it. He doesn't go around the jungle looking for something to eat because I believe he's rather slow. People don't see a python and wait till it comes up to them and then devours them. Yeah, here I am. No, over here, a little to the left. No, the python has to wait until some unfortunate animal or even a man comes along and then it captures it somehow or another. Now, as far as the bumblebee goes, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yadricha lavashantusto dvanvatito nimatsaraha samak siddhaval cha kridvapi nanabadite. One who's satisfied with whatever comes of its own accord, who is unentangled and free from desire, who's satisfied both in success and failure, is never entangled, although he performs activities. The basic principle is never entangled. That never entangled means our consciousness is not entangled. Entangled in what? How do we know if we're entangled? Our consciousness is entangled. Because we identify ourselves with the gross and subtle bodies. That's the entanglement. It's not some mystery entanglement that we're caught in a web. I'm in a web. I can't get out. Put a Q-tip in my ear and maybe we can get the web out. No, the web is our consciousness. We're entangled in material desires. As Krishna says, we can refer to Bhagavad Gita. What is our entanglement? Brahma bhuta prasanatma nishoshiti nikangshiti samak sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labhate param. That Krishna starts with prasanatma because basically that's the preliminary stage of consciousness we're trying to achieve. So he puts that as an advertisement right out front. Would you like to be happy? The first lecture I heard Prabhupada give in Buffalo in 1969, the first thing he asked was, do you want to become happy? He asked all the devotees, all 5 of us. We were a Maha Temple at the time. One of the top book distributors in the world at that time. We were doing 140 Bhakti Guideheads a month. But when we were competing against the other Maha Temples, we were out front. We had 5, they had 4 people in the Maha Temple. 4 devotees. In any case, first thing Prabhupada asked us was, do you want to become happy? And none of the devotees knew the answer because no one had ever asked us in our lives if we ever wanted to become happy. So everyone looked at Prabhupada as if we had asked a question on quantum physics. And then Prabhupada looked a little concerned, and then he repeated the same question again. He said, don't you want to become happy? And no one dared reply, because it was 50% chance they get it wrong. And the third time, Prabhupada asked the same question, do you want to become happy? And finally, one devotee guessed the answer and said, yes. And Prabhupada said, oh, that's very good. So Prasanatma is the first goal that everyone wants to achieve. Prasan means joyful. Atma. Prabhupada is not exactly joyful. Prabhupada gives the example if you're in prison for a long, long time, and suddenly they open up the cell gate and say you're free, how happy you feel that you're free. Or if you're in a burning desert and you come suddenly to an oasis full of nice water and fruits, how happy you feel and relieved. Similarly, when one gets out of material consciousness, one becomes Prasanatma. And what is that getting out of material consciousness? It's the shoshati, the kangshati, not to hanker and not to lament. These are the preliminary levels, the preliminary consciousness we have to come to in order to become joyful. But that's not all, because if we stop hankering and lamenting, we also, Krishna says, samak sarveshu bhuteshu, be able to see all living entities on the same level. That doesn't mean that all living entities are on the same material level, but they're on the same spiritual level. That is to say, instead of seeing people's gross and subtle material bodies and either hanker for one body or for something that body can give us, or lament the harm that body can give us or can take away from us, that we should see everyone as a spirit soul, ultimately an instrument either directly for Krishna or indirectly to Krishna, for Krishna, through his material energy. But not a blade of grass is moving without Krishna's desire. Although Krishna does not, we shouldn't say desire, I should say without Krishna's will. Sanctioning, at least. Krishna is the permitter and the overseer and permitter. So he oversees everything and he permits us to do what we want or what we desire. Because our desires are not independent either. Generally speaking, we're conditioned by hankering and conditioning by lamentation. And on the basis of that, we have different relationships with people in the material world. And therefore, we're not prasanatma, because we have friends and we have enemies. I look at one person, I feel good, and I look at the next person, I feel like killing him. Or I'm afraid they'll kill me. So we have different emotions that arise moment to moment according to our association, and our association is determined by simply what we're glancing at. So, this giving up of hankering, lamentation, and seeing all living entities on the same level as spiritually, this is the beginning of becoming happy. So, yadricha, things that come of their own accord. It is not that if we give up hankering and lamentation, then we'll have nothing. We'll be like the bumblebee or the bumblebees who someone came along and took everything away from them, and we'd have nothing. No, Krishna says, anas chintayanto mam, ye jana paripasate, tesham nityabhyuktanam yoga shemam ahvahamyaham. To those who are constantly meditating by my transcendental form, I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. So it's not that Krishna is indifferent to his devotees, and if you give everything up to Krishna, then he watches you and starves and say, sorry, not enough for myself. No, if one is actually doing things in Krishna consciousness to please Krishna, then whatever we actually need, Krishna will supply. And whatever we actually need for our service, Krishna will protect, especially our consciousness. Now, even devotees may come up with this understanding wrongly what they think they need. In other words, they may think they need something when they actually don't need it. And Krishna may not supply everything that they think they need. For instance, there was one farm that I used to visit regularly, and they had around 300 cows. Now, the idea of the farm was supposed to be self-sufficient. And self-sufficient means only rely upon the milk that the cows give. But their idea of self-sufficient was that everyone had to have their own car. Similarly, they had to go to India at least once a year. And of course, a video to play the movies of Prabhupada was necessary for everyone. So the conception of carrying what they lacked was that these poor cows had to keep on giving milk, but milk is not so profitable. And therefore, the cows could not meet the demands of 50 cars and 50 vacations and everything else that they thought they required. Therefore, they thought it was impractical. This self-sufficiency is impractical. If we keep on going this way, we won't be able to get a phone every year, a new smartphone, and we'll have to become stupid. Now, Krishna will give what we need. As a matter of fact, sometimes Krishna will give us more than we need. In the case of Sudama Vipra, who was Krishna's childhood friend, then Sudama was a little too excessively austere. He went to the other extreme. And he was practically starving. And his wife was starving too. And therefore his wife was always concerned. So because his wife was concerned, she was also a devotee, therefore Krishna made the arrangement that Sudama was inspired to go to Dwarka. Not with the intention of getting anything from his friend Krishna, but Krishna knew his wife was concerned, and therefore because his wife was the devotee, Krishna was also concerned. And so, Sudama spent the night with Krishna. Well, the day Krishna came and embraced his dear friend from Gurukul. There were Gurukulis. Yeah. And he embraced him, put him on the bedstead of Rukmini Devi. Rukmini Devi personally fanned Sudama, fed him, and he took rest. And Krishna talked with Sudama about their childhood pastimes in the ashram of Sandipani Muni. Then the next day, Sudama left in ecstasy, remembering his wonderful association with Krishna and Shrimati Rukmini Devi. thinking that actually I'm not really a Brahmin. I'm a Brahma Bandhu. I'm not even qualified as a Brahmin. But Krishna is so kind that even though I'm not qualified as a Brahmin, still he accepted me as like a Brahmin, as his dear friend, and personally fed me and washed my feet. The goddess of fortune herself personally fanned me. He said Krishna is so kind to the Brahmins. He never thought himself anything special. He thought because he was acting as a Brahmin or trying to act as a Brahmin, therefore Krishna took such special care of him. And he said, Krishna is so kind that he knew that because I'm a materialist, I have the tendency to get material desires, and therefore he didn't give me a penny. He didn't give me even €1. Because he knew I'm a poverty-stricken beggar and I might misspend the money. Therefore he gave me nothing. But I was so happy to be with my friend Krishna. He arrived back at his home, what he thought was his home, and he couldn't find it. Instead, he saw these big palaces everywhere. And he saw these celestial people walking around dressed as almost like demigods, carrying lamps and fruit and different types of things, and magnificent gardens with all kinds of flowers. And he was wondering, maybe I made a wrong turn or something. I mean, where am I? I lost my compass. Maybe I'm way off here. And then he saw his wife come out of one of the palaces along with musicians. And I was thinking, what happened? She looks like a demigoddess. And his wife bows down before Sudama and offers obeisances with tears in her eyes. And then he realized, wow, there's some kind of transformation going on here. And then he goes into his palace, and then according to our acharyas, then his body was transformed into a youthful, beautiful body, almost like a demigod. Because Krishna arranged it that Sudama's body didn't get transformed immediately, because otherwise his wife wouldn't have recognized him. So then Sudama and his wife lived in their palace. Their beds were just like celestial. The mattress was just like foam, and the hanging from the walls was silk, and there was the floor was made out of marble. So they were living in a very opulent situation. But Sudama recognized that actually this has all been given by the mercy of Krishna, and he's giving it to me to utilize in his service. So in spite of the fact that he went from poverty to great opulence, he was always remaining humble and absorbed in Krishna consciousness and pure devotional service. So Krishna will sometimes take things away, and sometimes he'll give everything. What is that verse about Krishna taking everything away? There's a verse from Yudhisthira Maharaj quotes a verse that the first installment of Krishna's mercy sometimes is he takes everything away from the devotee. And then when the devotee is poverty-stricken and he has no shelter other than Krishna, then Krishna accepts him and sometimes gives him more opulence than the King of Heaven. Krishna just simply doesn't want his devotees to get entangled. Unlike personalities like Vrikasura. Vrik means wolf, actually, as we know. The wolf demon. It was like a wolf. And now Vrikasura, he wanted a benediction. He asked Narada who he should get the benediction from. And Narada informed him that the best person you can get a benediction from is Lord Shiva. Because Lord Shiva is Ashutosh, and he'll give any kind of benediction just to get rid of the person who's asking him for the benediction. So Vrikasura, being an asura, he went to a mountain sacred mount. And then he built a fire and began to cut flesh from his body and throw it into the fire. Swaha. So he was soaring his flesh away and throwing it into the fire, chanting Swaha, hoping Lord Shiva would appear. And Lord Shiva didn't appear. So he thought, if Lord Shiva doesn't appear, then I'll do one last sacrifice and see if he'll appear on that basis. So he bathed himself, just like in the Vedic culture. If you want to sacrifice an animal, you first bathe it. And then you sacrifice the animal. Of course, the idea is to bring the animal back to life. In this case, Vrikasura bathed his body, took his hair. He wasn't a brahmachari, so he had a lot of hair. And he took it in his hand, held his head over the fire, and took a big knife and was going to slice off his head, and then Swaha, the last offering. Luckily, before he did that, Lord Shiva appeared from the fire, and he touched Vrikasura's body, and Vrikasura's body became healed. And Lord Shiva said, "What are you doing? Why are you cutting off your head? I'm satisfied with a little bilva fruit and a little Ganges water. You don't have to go through such extremes to get my benediction." But Vrikasura, he had some desire. He wanted something, but what he wanted, because he was an asura, was in the mode of ignorance. He wanted that whosever head he touches would crack into thousands of pieces. So Lord Shiva realized that somehow or another this was a mistake, giving this demon a benediction. But anyhow, I can't take my word back. So he gave him the benediction. And Vrikasura immediately tried to touch Lord Shiva's head. The idea is that he could crack Shiva's head into millions of pieces and then steal his wife Parvati. Obviously, he was quite a powerful demon. But Lord Shiva fled and chased after, and Vrikasura chased after him. And as he went everywhere in the universe seeking shelter, finally he arrived at Swetadweep, and Lord Vishnu, in the form of a brahmachari with matted hair, deer skin, and rudraksha beads around his neck, with a danda, Lord Shiva ran past him. And then Vrikasura, chasing after Lord Shiva, Lord Vishnu said, in the form of a brahmachari, "My dear Vrikasura, O son of Shukuni, why are you running so fast? If you run so fast, you're going to wear your body away, and then if your body is destroyed, you won't be able to fulfill the desires of your mind. So maybe you should slow down so you don't wear yourself out." So Vrikasura was convinced, this is a friend of the family. He knows my father. Maybe I should find out from him what he suggests. So he slowed down and said, "Yes, what do you suggest?" He said, "Well, actually," Lord Vishnu said, "tell me what you're doing, then I can give you a suggestion." So Vrikasura said, "Actually, I decided to get a benediction from Lord Shiva, so I went through those austerities, and finally he gave me a benediction that whosever head I touch, I would crack into thousands of pieces. And so I wanted to try it out, kill Lord Shiva and then steal Parvati." So Lord Vishnu said, "Well, it's all right, but are you sure your plan's going to work? Because I have direct information that Lord Shiva got into a fight with his son-in-law, father-in-law, Daksha. And Daksha cursed him to become haunted by ghosts. So I have information that Lord Shiva is going all around the universe handing out counterfeit benedictions. So I think you should find this Lord Shiva and you should, what I think you should do is you should touch your head and see if it works, the benediction. And if it doesn't work, then you should go and find this rascal Lord Shiva and kill him." So Vrikasura, being bewildered by the illusory energy of Lord Vishnu, thought, "Yeah, that sounds pretty good." So he took his hand, he touched his own head, and it cracked into thousands of pieces, and he died. And all the demigods showered flowers, and then Lord Vishnu told Lord Shiva, don't hand out these benedictions to these demons because you're getting yourself and others into difficulty. So it's not that everything that our desires are necessarily pure or beneficial. So if we become a devotee of Krishna, then Krishna will try to help us. If we try to become, and he'll try to encourage us what actually to desire and what not to desire. But he's not going to interfere with it. It's not that I'm a devotee, I put on my kunti mala, I put these kunti beads, and I have my kunti mala, and I'm dressed like a devotee, and I chant Hare Krishna, and therefore all my desires are pure. No, Krishna doesn't interfere with our attachment to our desires because they're also part of Krishna's plan. These desires are being supplied to us because of our past desires and activities, and therefore Krishna doesn't interfere with which desires we choose to fulfill. But he tries to encourage us to give up the materialistic desires and to take up the spiritual desires. So that means sometimes he chastises us, sometimes he inspires us, sometimes someone praises us, sometimes someone criticizes us. But these are all meant for the same purpose, to inspire us to give up material desires, hankering and lamentation, and accept hankering for Krishna and lamenting that we don't have him. We don't have to give up hankering and lamentation completely. We just have to hanker for the right thing and lament over the right thing. Hanker for Krishna and lament the fact that we don't have him. Then our lives will become perfect. As far as the python goes, the same thing. We shouldn't make too many endeavors running around to get something. We should So we should wait for whatever Krishna wants to give us to come, because we should understand that Krishna does want us to eat. We should have some place to sleep. So if someone rings the bell, it's time for prasadam or whatever, we shouldn't wait for someone to bring the prasadam to us. We can go and actually get it ourselves. We don't have to sit there with the mouth open. I hope someone will pass by and stick a samosa in our mouth. Better to go and get the prasadam. Similarly, when it's time to sleep, don't wait for someone to pick you up and bring you to the bed. Unless there's some serious problem that you have. Instead, some things we have to endeavor for also. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? Comments?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. You mentioned that Krishna sometimes to devotee takes everything away from him, and when
not everything, he leaves them with at least copins or something.
Okay. And when the devotee seek his shelter, afterwards he gives him back more?
Sometimes not, depending.
Okay.
Krishna knows. Not everyone wants everything.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to live as a brahmachari and you're happy chanting Hare Krishna, and someone, just like there was one story of one Brahmin, he was a real Brahmin in Krishna Lila. He was living in Vrindavan, and he had a daughter, and his wife kept on saying, "Why don't you get some money because we have to marry our daughter?" But he was a Brahmin, so he lived by whatever charity he got. But one day his wife kicked him out of the house and said, go find your friend Krishna, and maybe he'll give you something in charity. Don't come back until you get some charity. So he went, because Krishna was having his pastimes herding the cows nearby, he went and found Krishna. And he asked Krishna for some charity. He needed some wealth. So Krishna said, I'm a coward boy. I don't own anything. The only thing I think I have is Radharani. So he said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you this, my girlfriend, Radharani. And then so the Brahmin started to cry. He said, they said, why are you crying? He said, it's hard enough to get one lady married. Now I got to get two of them married. So Radharani became very compassionate, wiped away the Brahmin's tears, and told Krishna, you have to benedict this Brahmin. So that Krishna said, all right. So he put the Brahman, put Radharani on the scale, because the Brahmin said, I can't really, I have enough problems with one lady trying to get her married, one girl, but to speak of two. But Krishna said, I gave you her away, I can't take her back. I can't give something to a Brahmin and then take it back. It's sinful. So Krishna said, all right, I'll tell you what. Put Radharani on one scale, one side of the scale. He told his coward boyfriends, bring a scale. And then we put Radharani on one scale, one side of the scale, one of the scales. And the other one, he had all the gopis take off their jewelry and put it onto the other scale, other balance, so that we get enough wealth to weigh for Radharani. So after putting all their jewels and gold and everything on the scale, finally they got up to Radharani, her weight. And then Krishna offered that wealth to the Brahmin and says, well, I can't, if you don't want Srimati Radharani, then I'll give you all this wealth. He said, well, very good. So the Brahmin took it and went back home, and everyone was happy, especially his wife. So Krishna will give us as much as we need. He may not give us everything we want, but he knows what we actually need.
I want to add that Krishna give us when we develop that we don't hanker after this.
Well, sometimes, Krishna, he doesn't wait until we have no more hankering. The end of Brahma, the end of the Kalpa, when we have no more hankering, then Krishna says, yeah, would you like a tulsi leaf? No, as we make progress, when Krishna sees some desire we have, if we give it up or we become neutral, whatever else, then just like Dhruva Maharaj went through great austerity to get a kingdom greater than that of his great-grandfather, which was quite a desire because his great-grandfather was Lord Brahma. So he wanted a kingdom bigger than this universe. Not an ordinary desire. So he had to go through austerity for 6 months, and then finally Krishna appeared, and Krishna appeared, and Dhruva Maharaj was completely in ecstasy, and Krishna offered him any benediction he wanted, and he said, I don't need any benediction, because actually I was looking for some broken pieces of glass, but now I found a diamond like you. Swamin Krintarto Ye Vache. So Krishna still gave him the results of his desire. He gave him Dhruva Loka to live on. Dhruva Loka is a spiritual planet in this universe, which is greater than that of the material universe because it's spiritual. So sometimes we desire something, we go through great austerities to get it, and then we don't desire it anymore, and then Krishna gives it to us. Anything else? Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande.